Welcome back to the deep dive. Today is going to be interesting. We are tackling a monster.
A massive one. A cultural phenomenon, really.
And I mean that in the best way possible, but also, let's be honest, in a slightly controversial way. We are looking at a stack of notes, articles, and transcriptions regarding one of the most influential personal finance books of all time. We are diving into the source material behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
It is a classic. A cult classic, really. And what's fascinating to me digging back into this is that even though the book has been around for decades, it was published in the late 90s, the core message seems to get more relevant, not less, as the economic landscape shifts.
That's what struck me reading through this. You read the sections on the rat race and job security, and it feels like it was written this morning. It addresses that anxiety everyone feels.
It really does.
But before we get into the mechanics of money, the assets and liabilities, we have to talk about the narrative. Because for a finance book, it's not written like a textbook at all. It's a story.
It is. It's a parable. It's designed to be accessible, to get you to lower your defenses.
Exactly. It's the tale of two fathers. And I think this is where the hook is. It's brilliant, really. The author, Robert, claims he had two dad figures growing up. Let's break down who these guys were, because they are basically archetypes for two completely different ways of existing on this planet.
They really are. They're like two different operating systems for life.
Yeah.
So first you have Poor Dad. This was his biological father.
Right.
And the label poor is actually a bit of a misnomer if you just looked at his resume or his LinkedIn profile today. I mean, this man was highly educated. We're talking a PhD. He went to Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern.
Top-tier school.
The best of the best. He was the head of education for the state of Hawaii.
Which, to 99% of the population, sounds like the absolute definition of success. He's a high-ranking government official. He's got the degrees. He's got the title. He's the guy you want your kid to grow up to be.
100%. Scholastically and professionally, he was a superstar. But financially, he struggled. His entire life was a battle to pay the bills.
And his whole philosophy, his operating system, as you called it, was built on this idea of stability and job security.
Totally. His mantra was, I can't afford it. That was his default response to anything that cost money.
And that phrase just shuts down the conversation. It shuts down your brain.
It does. And deeply ingrained in him was this almost puritanical idea that the love of money was the root of all evil.
He saw money as something dirty, or at least the pursuit of it was dirty. He believed you worked for the passion of education, for the good of the state, and the money was just, well, it was secondary.
Exactly. He worked hard, paid his bills, and if there was anything left over, which there rarely was, he saved it. But he never made headway. He was highly literate in his field, but completely financially illiterate.
Okay, so that's Poor Dad. The picture of conventional success, but financially fragile. Then you have Rich Dad.
Right. And this wasn't his biological father. It was his best friend, Mike's dad.
And the contrast is it's jarring.
It really is. Rich Dad never finished the 8th grade.
8th grade, no PhD, no Stanford.
Nothing. But he eventually became one of the richest men in Hawaii. He built an empire of convenience stores, real estate, and construction. He was a capitalist, through and through.
And his operating system was the polar opposite.
Completely. Where Poor Dad said, I can't afford it, Rich Dad actually forbade those words in his house. He said that phrase acts like a mental break. It's a sign of mental laziness.
It lets you off the hook.
Right. Instead, he insisted on asking, how can I afford it?
It's such a subtle shift in language, but when you think about it, it's huge. One is a statement of defeat, I can't, which ends the conversation. The other is a question that forces your brain to search for a solution. It forces creativity.
It turns a roadblock into a puzzle. And here's the kicker. Whereas Poor Dad thought the love of money was the root of evil, Rich Dad believed the lack of money was the root of all evil.
That's a powerful inversion.
He saw poverty as the thing that caused crime, broken families, misery, and ignorance. He saw money as a tool, a form of power that you had to learn to master.
So the aha moment here, and the reason we are doing this deep dive, isn't just to judge these two men. It's to realize that we, the listeners, are usually running one of these operating systems without even realizing it.
We are. We're usually running the script our parents gave us or the one society gave us.
And that is the mission today. We have to decode financial literacy. Think about it. We spend, 15 to 20 years in school?
At least.
We learn scholastic skills, reading, writing, history. We learn professional skills, how to be a doctor, a lawyer, a coder. But we are never at any point taught financial skills. We are never taught how money works.
It's just not on the curriculum.
Which explains why you can have a guy with a PhD, like Poor Dad, who is brilliant, maybe even a genius in his field, but he's financially drowning.
Exactly. He's playing a game where he doesn't know the rules. He's trying to win a chess match by playing checkers.
All right, let's get into the game. Let's jump into segment 1. The source material calls this the trap of fear and greed, but everyone knows it by the more famous term.
The rat race.
The rat race. This starts with the very first lesson Rich Dad taught the author. And he didn't teach it with a chalkboard or a lecture. He taught it by making the kids experience it.
Which is the most effective way to learn anything.
And
really.
absolutely. The lesson is, the rich don't work for money. They have money work for them.
Simple to say, very hard to internalize.
But the way he got there, I mean, talk about hands-on learning. The story goes that the author, Robert, and his friend Mike, they're 9 years old, they want to get rich, they're at that age.
Yep, every 9-year-old boy's dream.
So they ask Poor Dad how to make money, and he basically shrugs and says, use your head. So what do? They start collecting toothpaste tubes.
And you have to remember, context is key here. This is the 1950s. Toothpaste tubes weren't plastic like they are today. They were made of lead.
Right. So these kids set up a full-on production line in the driveway. They are melting these lead tubes down in a coffee can over hot coals. I mean, it's dangerous. There are toxic fumes, this white powder everywhere.
It sounds like a super fun sight in the making.
It really does. So Poor Dad walks up with a friend and sees these two kids covered in dust and asks what on earth they are doing.
And they proudly say, we're doing what you said, we're making money, and they tap these little plaster molds and out fall these lead nickels.
They were casting nickels. They were literally counterfeiting currency in their driveway.
It's kind of brilliant for a 9-year-old, you have to admit.
It is, but it's also, a federal crime.
Right. So Poor Dad has to explain that delicately. Boys, you're counterfeiting.
Yeah.
But he praises their creativity. He sees the spark. And then he says something really important. He admits he can't teach them how to be rich because he doesn't know how. He sends them to Mike's dad.
So they go to see Rich Dad, and Rich Dad offers them a deal. He says, I'll teach you, but I'm not going to lecture you like a school teacher. Life is the best teacher. You have to work.
And he makes them work in one of his convenience stores. 3 hours every Saturday morning.
For 10 cents an hour.
Yeah.
I looked this up to see if it was fair. Even in 1956, 10 cents an hour was awful. It was well below minimum wage even then.
It was slave wages. It was insulting.
Right.
And that was the design.
Right. So the author works for a few weeks. He's missing his baseball games. He buys a few comic books. But eventually, he gets fed up. He's 9 years old. He's tired, and he's ready to quit. He marches to Rich Dad's house to demand a raise.
He's feeling exploited. He tells Rich Dad, you're cheap. You haven't taught me anything. You've just made me work for peanuts and missed my games. He's really letting him have it.
And this is the pivot point. Rich Dad just sits back in his swivel chair and says, not bad. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees.
Ouch. That had to sting.
Devastating for a 9-year-old.
The lesson wasn't about dusting cans. The lesson was about the emotion the boy was feeling. Rich Dad explains that life pushes you around. Most people, when life pushes them, meaning they don't have enough money, they react. They blame the boss, they blame the job, or they demand a raise.
They think more money will solve the problem. If I just got that 10% bump, I'd be fine.
Exactly. But Rich Dad points out that even if he paid him more, it wouldn't solve the core issue. He identifies two primary emotions that drive the rat race: fear and desire.
Let's break those down because I think everyone listening, myself included, can relate to this visceral feeling.
It starts with fear. The fear of being without money. That fear is primal. It's the fear of being homeless, of not being able to eat. It motivates us to get up, go to a job we might not even like, and work hard. We are afraid we can't pay the rent, can't buy food, can't provide for our families.
Okay, so that fear gets you out of bed. You work, you get paid. The fear goes away for a second. You have cash in hand.
Right. But then the second emotion kicks in. Desire. Or greed, though. Desire is maybe a softer word. Once you have money, you start thinking about all the possibilities. A nicer car, a new house, a vacation, the latest iPhone.
The things you see on Instagram.
All of it. So you spend it, you indulge that desire.
And then the money is gone.
And the fear returns immediately. So you go back to work, wake up, go to work, pay bills, wake up, go to work, pay bills. That is the cycle. That is the rat race.
And Rich Dad's point was that money is running their emotional lives. They aren't thinking with their brains. They're thinking with their fear and their desire.
Precisely. They're reacting, not thinking.
Yeah.
The trap, and this is the crucial part that really trips people up, is that most people think a raise is the cure.
Yeah, more money is always the answer, right?
But Rich Dad calls it the donkey chasing the carrot.
Yeah.
If you give a person in the rat race more money, do they save it? Do they invest it? Usually no. They just increase their spending. We call it lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation.
But just buy a bigger carrot, a more expensive carrot.
Exactly. They get a raise, so they buy a bigger house. Now they have a bigger mortgage. They buy a nicer car, so they have a bigger car payment. The fear of losing that house and that car becomes even bigger, so they work even harder. They are trapped by their own liabilities.
It's fascinating because when you say fear, it sounds irrational, but the fear of not being able to pay bills is real. It's totally valid. I mean, if I stop working, I lose my house. That's a real consequence.
It is valid, absolutely. But the analysis here is that job security is the illusion we use to soothe that fear. If your only strategy to handle that fear is to work harder for someone else, you are incredibly vulnerable. What happens if the company folds? If AI makes your job obsolete, you're done.
So true wealth, according to the source material, requires mastering those emotions. You have to step back and observe them.
You have to step off the hamster wheel for a second and ask, is working harder at this job actually solving the problem, or is it just a temporary patch? Is this leading to freedom, or is it just digging me deeper into the trap?
Okay, so if working for money is the trap, what is the solution? Because we all need to eat. This leads us to segment 2, which is arguably the technical core of the whole philosophy, the golden rule.
Right. If you take nothing else from this deep dive, take this. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and you must buy assets.
It sounds so simple. I mean, stupidly simple. Rich Dad called it the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. But the definitions he uses, they are not what you find in a standard accounting textbook. And this is where people get angry.
Oh, accountants hate this. Certified financial planners hate this. But standard accounting is designed for businesses and tax compliance, not necessarily for empowering personal finance. Rich Dad boiled it down to cash flow, just the direction the money is moving.
Okay, lay it on us. The Rich Dad definition.
An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it.
Okay, simple enough. Let's apply that. Because this is the biggest controversy in the book, the one that gets all the headlines. The house.
Yes. Ask almost anyone on the street, what is your biggest asset? And they will say, my home.
Right. It's the American dream. It's on your balance sheet as an asset. Banks count it as an asset when you apply for a loan.
Of course they do. But apply the Rich Dad definition. Does your primary residence put money in your pocket every month?
No, not at all. I write a very large check to the bank every month. It definitely leaves my pocket.
Exactly. You pay a mortgage. You pay property taxes, which never go away. You pay insurance. You pay for the new roof, the water heater when it breaks, the lawn care. It takes money out of your pocket month after month.
So, by this definition, a house is a liability.
Correct. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean don't buy a house. It means understand what it is. It's a place to live, but it is not an asset in the cash flow sense.
Okay, but people argue, but it goes up in value, it appreciates. That's the standard counterargument. I'll sell it for a profit in 30 years.
Maybe. Or maybe you won't. That is speculation, not cash flow. You are betting on the market. And until you sell it, it is eating your cash. And there is a huge opportunity cost. Think about it. That down payment, all those monthly payments, that is money that could have been in the asset column, actively growing and compounding and putting money in your pocket.
This really becomes clear when you visualize the cash flow patterns described in the text. I want the listener to picture 3 diagrams in their head.
Let's visualize them. First, the poor. It's very simple. An income statement and a balance sheet. Income comes in from a job, and it goes straight out to expenses. Rent, food, clothes, transportation. There are no assets, no liabilities really, just survival. In and out.
A straight line from income to expense.
Then the middle class. This is where most of us live.
And this is where the trap is most deceptive.
Right. The middle class is where the confusion between assets and liabilities happens. Income comes in from a job. But then they buy liabilities that they think are assets. They buy the big house, the nice car, the boat. They rack up credit card debt for vacations. Money comes in, flows to the liability column to pay for all these things, and then leaves as expenses.
The paycheck is basically just a conduit to pay off the bank and the credit card companies.
You got it. And the rich.
This is the goal.
The rich have a completely different pattern. They focus entirely on building the asset column. They buy stocks that pay dividends, bonds that pay interest, income-generating real estate that tenants pay for, intellectual property that pays royalties. notes from loans they've made. The income flows from the assets.
The assets are doing the work.
Exactly. That income covers their expenses, and the surplus is reinvested back into the asset column to buy more assets.
It's a snowball effect, a virtuous cycle.
It is. The rich get richer not because they earn higher salaries necessarily, but because their assets are generating the income. They don't have to be physically present to make money. Their money is working for them 24/7.
This brings up a really cool definition of wealth from Buckminster Fuller that was referenced in the notes. I love this. He said wealth isn't a dollar amount. It's not about being a millionaire. It's survivability.
I love this metric. It changes how you see your bank account. The question isn't, how much money do I have? The question is, if I stopped working today, if I broke my leg and couldn't type, couldn't show up, how many days could I survive?
That is a sobering question. For most people, that answer is frighteningly short. Maybe a month, maybe 3 if they have an emergency fund.
For many, it's a week. But for the wealthy, the answer is theoretically forever. If your monthly cash flow from assets exceeds your monthly expenses, you are wealthy, you are financially free, you have exited the rat race.
That is such a powerful shift. It's not about having $1 million in the bank. It's about having enough cash flow from your assets to cover your life without working.
Precisely. You've bought your freedom. And that leads directly to the next mindset shift. Most people spend their lives minding someone else's business.
This is segment 3, mind your own business. And there's a great anecdote here about Ray Kroc, the guy who built McDonald's.
Yes. Ray Kroc was speaking to a group of MBA students at the University of Texas. During the Q&A, he asked them, "What business am I in?"
And everyone laughed, right? They said, hamburgers, obviously.
Of course. And Ray said, "No, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in the hamburger business. I'm in the real estate business."
It blew their minds, but think about it.
It's brilliant. The franchises were just the vehicle. The real business was owning the land under the franchise. The franchise pays rent on the land, and that land appreciates over time. McDonald's is one of the largest single owners of real estate in the world. The hamburger is just the bait.
So the lesson for the listener is to separate your profession from your business.
Exactly. Your profession is what you do for a paycheck. You might be a banker, a nurse, a salesperson. That is you working for someone else, minding their business. Your business is your asset column. Minding your own business means buying and building assets while you keep your day job.
You use your paycheck from your profession to fund your business.
Until your business, your asset column, is strong enough to support you. Then you can quit your job if you want.
But we have a silent partner in all this, don't we? We work for the boss, we work for the bank, but we also work for the government.
The government is a big one. And this brings us to the history of taxes. It's fascinating because the source material outlines how taxes were originally sold to the public as a Robin Hood scheme.
Take from the rich, give to the poor.
Right. In Britain and America, income tax was introduced by promising the masses it would only affect the super rich. It was a tax on the wealthy. So the masses voted for it. They cheered for it because they thought, hey, it's not my money. Punish the rich.
But then what happened?
The government got addicted to the money. Their appetite for spending grew. They needed to fund wars, social programs, bureaucracy, and eventually the income thresholds lowered and the taxes trickled down to the middle class and even the poor. The Robin Hood fantasy backfired on the very people who voted for it.
And here's the twist. The rich didn't just sit there and pay the high taxes.
No, and this is where the expert analysis really comes in. The rich have the resources and the financial intelligence to adapt. They didn't just pay, they reacted. They used their knowledge to find legal loopholes. And the biggest tool in their arsenal, the corporation.
Now, to be clear, when we say corporation, we aren't necessarily talking about a big glass building with a logo on the top.
No, not at all. As the text says, a corporation is a legal folder sitting in an attorney's office. It's a piece of paper with a state seal on it, but it holds magical powers regarding the tax code. It's a legal entity separate from you.
The magic is in the timeline of how money is spent. Can you walk us through the math of an employee versus a corporation?
Sure, this is the secret sauce. This is the game. If you are an employee, you earn money. The first thing that happens is the government takes its share, taxes are withheld from your paycheck before you even see it. Then you try to live on what is left. It's earn tax, spend.
You're spending post-tax dollars.
Right. And the corporation.
The game is different.
If you are a corporation,
Yeah.
you earn money. Then you spend everything you can first. You pay for legitimate business expenses, cars, trips, meals, health insurance, office supplies, anything that can be legally expensed as a cost of doing business. Then You are taxed only on what is left after all that spending. It's earned spend tax.
That is a massive, massive difference. You are paying for a significant portion of your lifestyle with pre-tax dollars.
It allows the rich to legally protect their wealth and grow it faster. Again, a disclaimer here, this is not about illegal tax evasion, it's about legal tax avoidance. It's about understanding the rules of the game accounting, the law, markets, and using them to your advantage, just as the government designed them to be used.
Which segues perfectly into segment 4. The rich invent money. This is about financial IQ because a lot of people here buy assets and think, okay, great, but I don't have any money to buy assets.
Right. And this section challenges the idea that being smart or hardworking in the traditional sense is enough. In the real world, as the book says, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold.
Fear holds so many people back. They see an opportunity, but they freeze. They overanalyze. They wait for the safe option that never comes.
Financial intelligence is described as a synergy of 4 core skills. 1 is accounting, the ability to read and understand financial statements. 2 is investing, the science of money making money. 3 is understanding markets, the dynamics of supply and demand. And 4 is the law, understanding tax advantages and corporate structures.
When you combine these, you can do things that seem like magic or even cheating to the financially uneducated.
The source gives a great example called the Briar Patch. The author talks about finding a deal during an economic downturn. It was a house worth $75,000, but he found it at a bankruptcy court auction for $20,000.
Okay, an average person says, I don't have $20,000, and they walk away.
Exactly. But Robert, using his financial intelligence, borrowed $2,000 from a friend for the down payment. He didn't use his own money. He then immediately put the house back on the market, but not for cash. He sold it for $60,000, carrying the note himself. The new buyer paid him a small down payment and then made monthly payments to him.
So he essentially created a $40,000 asset out of thin air.
He invented that $40,000 out of his financial intelligence. He saw an arbitrage opportunity that others missed because they were too afraid or didn't understand the law. He then used a tax loophole called the 1031 exchange to defer taxes on gains, keeping that money working for him.
So the text distinguishes between 2 types of investors. There's the packaged investor.
That's the retail shopper. That's most of us. You call a broker, you buy a mutual fund, you buy shares of Apple. It's clean, it's simple. It's like buying a computer off the shelf at Best Buy. You're buying a finished product.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just one way to do it.
Nothing wrong at all. But then there's the creative investor.
The professional.
This is the component builder. They assemble the deal themselves. They find an opportunity that everyone else missed, maybe a rundown house on a big lot. They raise the money, often other people's money, and they organize smart people, accountants, lawyers, contractors, to make it happen. They are buying the parts and building the computer themselves for a fraction of the cost.
I'm fascinated by this because it feels like alchemy, but you're saying it's just skill. It's a learned skill.
It is, and it's important to note, as the text emphasizes, it is not gambling if you know what you are doing. Gambling is throwing money into a deal and praying. Investing is using knowledge to mitigate and manage risk. The risk is in the investor, not the investment itself.
Okay, this is so much about mindset. Let's move to segment 5. Work to learn, don't work for money. This is about your career path and how you should think about your job.
Yes, and this brings us back to the idea of specialization. Poor Dad, the academic, believed in job security through high specialization. His advice was, learn more and more about less and less. Be the best cog in the machine. If you're a specialist, the union or the tenure system protects you.
Rich Dad, the entrepreneur, believed in knowing a little about a lot. He wanted them to be generalists.
Exactly. And there is a stinging story here about a young female reporter. She was a talented writer, had a master's degree in English literature. She interviewed Robert and then asked him how she could become a best-selling author like him.
And he told her to take a sales training course.
And she was offended. She practically spit at him. She said, I have a master's degree. I am a professional. I would never stoop so low as to become a salesman. Salespeople are sleazy. She packed up her things and left in a huff.
But Robert pointed to his own book cover. It said best-selling author, not best writing author.
That's the distinction. She was a great writer, but she didn't know how to sell or market her work. If she added sales skills to her writing skills, she would be unstoppable. But she was trapped by her professional identity and her ego. She thought sales was beneath her.
Rich Dad essentially groomed the author by making him work all sorts of jobs. Buzzboy, construction, and then sales at Xerox.
The Xerox job is key. Robert was shy. He was terrified of rejection. He took the job at Xerox specifically because they had the best sales training program in America. He forced himself to knock on doors and get told no over and over again till he overcame that fear of rejection.
Because if you can't sell, you can't be an entrepreneur. You can't sell your ideas. You can't sell your products. You can't sell yourself.
Exactly. The acronym JOB is described as standing for just over broke. If you are only working for the paycheck, you aren't building the skills to escape. You're just renting out your time.
The source mentions 3 main management skills you need to learn through your work experience.
Yes. The 3 are: 1, management of cash flow; 2, management of systems. That's everything from your personal time management to complex business operations. And 3, management of people. You learn these by working to learn, not just to earn. You might take a pay cut to work at a job where you learn how to manage a system, and that pay cut is actually an investment in your education.
Okay, now we've covered a lot of theory. It's inspiring. But even if you have financial literacy, there are things that trip you up. Segment 6 covers overcoming obstacles. There are 5 main roadblocks listed.
Yeah, even people who know what to do often don't do it. The first roadblock is fear. We talked about this, but specifically, it's the fear of losing money.
Everyone has that fear. Nobody likes losing money. It hurts. It feels terrible.
Yes, even the rich hate losing money. The difference is how you handle failure. The text uses the example of the Alamo. Texans don't bury their failures, they get inspired by them. Their rallying cry is "Remember the Alamo." Winning means being unafraid to lose.
That's a great line. Winning means being unafraid to lose. It reframes failure as part of the process.
If you are terrified of losing a dime, you will never make a dollar. You have to focus. The book argues that balanced people go nowhere. You have to put your eggs in a few baskets and watch them like a hawk, not diversify into oblivion out of fear.
The second roadblock is cynicism. This is the Chicken Little syndrome. The sky is falling.
Cynics criticize, winners analyze. That's the key phrase here. Cynicism blinds you to opportunity because you are just looking for why it won't work. You're looking for the flaw. Analysis opens your eyes to how it could work.
It's a voice in your head that says, I don't want to buy real estate because I don't want to fix toilets.
Right. And Rich Dad's response was, I don't want to fix toilets either. That's why I hire a property manager. The cynic uses the toilet as an excuse to do nothing. The winner finds a solution to the toilet problem.
Third is laziness. But it's not the laziness of lying on the couch watching TV. It's the laziness of staying busy.
This one is so profound. Busy people are often the laziest because they use their busyness work, kids, golf, social media, to avoid facing the important problems in their life, like their wealth or their health. They say, I'm too busy to invest, or I'm too busy to take care of my body. It's a form of avoidance.
So what's the cure for this kind of laziness?
A little bit of greed.
Which sounds wrong. We're taught greed is bad.
Exactly. But you need to ask, what's in it for me? You need to suppress the guilt that poor dad taught you and ask, how can I afford that new car? How can I afford to travel the world? That little spark of desire and ambition is what cures the laziness. It wakes up the spirit.
Okay, number 4 is bad habits. This goes back to paying bills.
Poor dad had the habit of paying his bills first. And if there was anything left over, he paid himself. Usually there's nothing left.
Rich dad paid himself first.
Even if he was short on cash, he would put money into his asset column first. Then the pressure of the creditors screaming at him would force him to be creative and find more money to pay the bills.
That sounds incredibly stressful. I mean, ignoring the tax man to pay your investment account.
It is. But it's described as financial weightlifting. If you pay yourself last, you feel no pressure, but you end up financially weak and broke. If you pay yourself first, you use the fear of the creditors to make you stronger. It forces you to hustle. Now, a very important note. Don't actually ignore the tax man indefinitely. That leads to jail. But prioritize your asset column allocation before your consumption.
Right. And finally, number 5, arrogance.
Arrogance is ego plus ignorance. People use arrogance to hide what they don't know. When you're arrogant, you lose money because you believe that what you don't know isn't important. Oh, I know everything about stocks turns into losing everything on a bad trade because you didn't know what you didn't know.
So we've covered the philosophy, the technicals, and the obstacles. Now let's get practical. Segment 7 is getting started. What are the actionable takeaways for the listener right now?
The source material offers 10 steps, but we can highlight the most critical ones. First, you need a reason greater than reality.
The why. Your motivation.
Exactly. If your why isn't strong like, I want to be free to travel the world, or I never want to sit in a cubicle again, then the reality of the hard work and the failures will beat you. You need a deep, emotional driving force that pulls you through the discouragement.
Second, choose friends carefully.
And this isn't about being a snob or classism. It's about proximity to information. Don't listen to the chicken littles who tell you it can't be done. Listen to people who are playing the game. You want insider knowledge, which is really just being close to people who know what's happening in the market. If all your friends are broke and cynical, you're likely to stay broke and cynical because that's the echo chamber you're in.
Third, master a formula, then learn a new one.
This is huge. Most people only know one formula. Go to school, get a job, get a paycheck. That's it. You need to learn a new formula. Maybe it's buying tax lien certificates or buying foreclosures. Master it. Do it over and over. Then learn another one, like socks. You become what you study. Don't dabble, master.
Fourth, pay your brokers well. This is counterintuitive. Everyone wants to save on commissions.
Right. But if your broker, your real estate agent, your stockbroker, your lawyer, is a professional, they are your eyes and ears in the market. If you pay them well, they bring you the best deals first. Being cheap with people who provide you information is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make.
Fifth, be an Indian giver. The phrasing is a bit dated, but the concept is powerful.
It is. It refers to the concept of getting your principal back quickly, the velocity of money. You put money into a deal, you get your initial investment back as fast as possible, but you keep the asset, the piece of the action, for free.
So you are playing with house money from that point on.
Exactly. Your risk drops to zero, but you still own the cash-flowing asset. That's the holy grail of investing.
And finally, a really fun one. Use assets to buy luxuries. We touched on this with the car earlier.
The Porsche example is classic. Robert wanted a Porsche. He didn't use his salary to buy it. He didn't get a consumer loan and become a slave to the payment. He gave his wife the money to invest in a piece of real estate. The cash flow from that real estate paid for the monthly car payment.
The asset bought the luxury.
Yes, and that teaches incredible financial discipline. If you can't generate the asset to pay for the toy, you don't get the toy. It turns the desire for luxury into motivation to invest rather than motivation to spend.
There are a couple more quick ones too, like finding heroes. Emulating people like Warren Buffett or, as mentioned in the text, Donald Trump, can make the risk feel more manageable. It's that if they can do it, so can I mentality.
And the principle of reciprocity. Teach and you shall receive. If you want money, be generous with money. If you want knowledge, teach what you know. It creates a vacuum that the universe tends to fill. It's a sort of karmic principle of finance.
This has been an absolute marathon of value. I mean, we've gone from lead nickels in a driveway to corporate tax structures.
It really all comes back to the core idea. Money is just an idea. It's not real in the way a table is real. The only difference between the rich and the poor is the information in their heads, is how they think.
And the choice. That is the final thought for today. Every dollar that enters your hand is a choice. You hold the power. You can choose to blow it on a doodad. That's the poor dad choice. You can choose to buy a liability you think is an asset. That's the middle class choice. Or you can choose to invest it in your mind in your asset column.
That is the rich dad choice.
So here's the provocative thought we want to leave you with today. Are you working for money, or is your money working for you? Are you building a pipeline that will flow for years, or are you just carrying buckets back and forth every single day?
And if you find yourself in a hole, the first rule is to stop digging.
Just a quick reminder before we sign off, we are reporting on the concepts found in the source material. We are not endorsing any specific financial advice or political viewpoints contained within it. We are here to help you understand the operating systems at play.
Knowledge is power, but only if you use it.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Catch you on the next one.